Humanitarian Love every Tuesday with Pauline. Hi, Pauline.
Hi, Asel. Hi, everyone.
Yes, so we have an exciting topic to talk about today. The topic of dating actively or massively, I don't know, whichever way that you experience it or you fear that you will have to do in order to meet the person that you're looking for. So we have some questions come up in this regard, so we thought that it's time to get more specific about why dating actively is often suggested for you to consider. And I think this is what we're going to do here as well. And also, what is it that you might be resisting not doing it or not wanting to go and go on dates, and then what can be done about it. So the first question is, Pauline, um, dating actively, using apps, without apps, it doesn't really matter, but the action of doing it, why we think this is the way to go, basically, to find the
Mm,
person.
yeah, so there's so many I mean, I can propose you. I'm gonna do this, and let's see, Asel, what you get on your mind. But
Yep.
um, for me, I think it's good to talk about it because many people have resistance to it. There is this idea that we talked about it in another episode about with the intentionality, with bringing the mindset that you have in work, with being intentional about what you're doing, how it's good with dating. So yes, some people may be resistant to be intentional and to date many people, or to be dating, to be seeing different people at the same time. They
Mm.
want to take it slow, and it makes sense. um, but there's often this idea, especially when we talk about dating apps, that it's mechanic, that it's like a factory, that it's losing its meaning, that it's losing the magic, that it's not romantic, not spontaneous, not organic, whatever you want to call it. And we want to bring to your attention that this may be true if you want to think about it this way. If you want to, I mean, one question that I ask my client is like, what is really romantic? What is really organic? Is like when two people meet and there is a connection. Then the dating process, it's just the medium to which those two people meet, whether it's natural or naturally in a party or at work or through an app. So the way they meet doesn't really matter. And so the magic happens when you find your person, when there is common things, when you like each other, and this you never know. So this idea of meeting more people, like the idea of intentionality, is to fasten the process. It's to make you have your person, be romantic with that person, instead of being romantic in your head, dreaming of how it's going to happen, that it's going to be a magical encounter that we never know. You can bring some intention and some initiative into that. Now, why is it good? Bon, first thing is, when you meet more people, obviously you have a higher probability to meet your person. Whether if you meet one person every month, you know, in terms of probability, it may take you 6 months or more to, I don't know. We have no idea, but just in terms of number games, the more people you meet, the more chances you have to meet your person. So that's the big number one argument,
And
right?
maybe also in that argument, we could also say that that's also the reason where you'll find out who you don't want to be dating, who you don't want to be going for, right? So it's like equally the flip side of that coin, which could be beneficial for you to think, okay, from now on, I have XYZ filters already, which is a good thing. So you will have for yourself something that you no longer be spending your time on, but you will be more intentional and focused on something else. So I would say that. And the other big argument, like I was saying, is that what I love about dating is it's like going on a surfing where surf like the ocean being the feelings, and we have like so many waves of feelings coming up, and then the more we date people, the more we are in that environment, we start learning more about this ocean. We start learning about this is how are the ways that I can balance this is how I want to show up, this is how I want to say things, the way I want to present things, right? These are the things that I don't want to be in divulging in the first or the second date or whatever. So I feel like it's you wouldn't go to the surfing immediately without knowing anything. You will have a bit of a training at least, and I love this idea of going on dates where you have the ability, the possibility to play around with your own feelings and emotions, getting to know them, how they come up, in which ways they come up, how they may overwhelm you, or how they may also be telling you it's time to get out and it's time not to be dating this type of people. So that's why I love dating also for those reasons, like getting to know you and getting to know your emotions in that moment where you are not comfortable, really, because it's a new environment, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So really this I love this analogy of being in the ocean, and because yes, dating, going to meet people can be overwhelming. There's a lot happening, there's a lot of fears coming up, a lot of doubts. And so the more you date, the more you practice. And so if you look at it in terms of like you, there is the goal, of course, you want to meet your person, but you take dating as a journey, as a practice. And there's so many things you can get for you besides a partner, which is already great, that you can learn throughout this practice. And when you are dating more people, you're getting like more training. And so what you mentioned is absolutely true in terms of getting clearer in who you want and who you don't want. That's very important because I think we mentioned it before. There's, the physical attraction. We talked last week about how to know is the right person. So you may have your own criteria, but you want to put your criteria, you want to make them with the reality, to see if it's just in your head, or if yeah, I confirm this is my criteria, or you're going to have new things. Like I have clients who say, oh, I realize that this guy is really paying attention to what I'm saying, and I really enjoy this attention. So I'm like, okay, now you put this in top of your list of criteria. It's not like, oh, he has to be 1 meter, 80 centimeters. It's more like, yeah, like the quality of attention, this is what matters. And so you get clear on what you want and what you don't want. When there's certain red flags, people arriving late, people not texting you, within a certain time, people having like certain behavior that you won't like, you could put this into like, okay, for me, this is a no-no. And this will makes you like, makes things easier with the time. So yes, getting clear on what you want and what you don't want, your red flags. Then you started talking about the emotions, absolutely. And we know that dealing with your emotion is a big thing. I think it's the hardest thing in dating is managing your emotion, like both before going on a date, when there's all this anxiety, all these fears, like what am I going to talk about, like all this confidence issue that is coming up, and then the dealing with like over analyzing the situation. What did I say? Was it the right thing? What did he mean? What did she mean by this? And then when somebody's not into you, when you get ghosted or rejection, then like all the despair and all the stories that you can make in your mind. So yes, dating is going to bring an ocean, like you say, of emotions. And by putting yourself out there, by going to meet the wave and many waves, you're going to get used to face those, to serve those inner waves. They're not going to be so scary after all, especially if you're learning to feel your feelings, feel your emotions, and not go into the mental stories, which is really a practice. So when you are quiet at your home, in your home, there is no strong currents. But when you get out of your comfort zone, when you go out and meet people, and when you're like, oh, okay, I feel anxious, you practice being confident, being relaxed, being present with the person. And so there's different things there. If we talk first about being confident, like this is a big thing that people want to do. But so again, if you go on a date once every blue moon, it's going to be hard. It's going to be more anxiety. But if you go out on a date 2-3 times a week, it's going to become very natural to you. And the more you do this, the more relaxed you're going to be, the more confident, and the more yourself. And this is what you
Exactly.
want to be. You want to be yourself on a date. You want to show the real you to the person who is in front of you, right?
Yes. And also the other thing that I love about dating, I think, is also getting into this flowing mode of like knowing your way, or like in surfing, but also in, like oftentimes this comes from the training, that when I go to do the physical training and then I stop doing it and then I go again, I have like muscle problems, and right, and then my trainer will say, well, you're not really doing in the flowing way, you are very like mechanical. And then this is when I realize is also that whatever else we do, if we don't really practice it, it becomes actually unnatural and mechanical. But then if we more practice it, it becomes more flowing, more like a natural, the way we call it, or maybe spontaneous, because we have now room and space for spontaneity, because we're not really, overthinking every step of the way, or anxious about how to hide all the emotions that are coming out that we don't want to be coming out, right? So that's why I actually think it's a great way to get into this zone, whatever the way you call it, or your a creative being in that moment, to say, okay, how can I be peaceful and letting go of all the anxiety and being me and experiencing myself being me in that new environment, in that nervous or whatever the environment that we're in. So that's why I would try it out and see how it is for you, how it is, how you want to approach it. What is the goal of it? Beside, of course, meeting the person, but also more like, what if the goal is meeting you in different circumstances, right? Meeting you in different situations, and then seeing, is that really the you like, or maybe you are taking it too far in some ways, or maybe you are hiding in other ways, and then how can you come out of that and then be comfortable in the uncomfortable environment. Yeah, I think we covered, I don't know, anything else that we
No,
are covering.
I have more. But just I love how you framed it, because you kind of turned around what people may think, it's not organic, it's not
Yeah,
spontaneous. Maybe if you want to think that way, but the other way that we are offering you is that the more you will do, the more peaceful you would be, and hence the more organic it will flow. So I
exactly.
really love this. So additional thing that I want to say about, totally agree with um, what you said about finding yourself, getting to know yourself. For me, this is like the whole thing of dating intentionally, of conscious dating, if we want to call it this way. It's like, of course, you have this goal of meeting your person and you're putting it yourself out there is bringing more probability, but there is so many other things you can gain from that. And yes, getting to know yourself, getting into the flow, getting to know your emotions, but also two main other points I want to share. The number one is self love. So, self love, again, is not something intangible, it's something very concrete, is how you're treating yourself. And so, when you are on this path of dating, and meeting many people, you can say, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to treat myself with love every step of the way. Meaning, you, example, are, setting and honoring boundaries, like this is a no, this is a yes. Getting in touch with what is important for you and speaking it out, speaking what you think, speaking what you need, um, and talking about dealing with your emotions. I mentioned when you're dealing with tough emotions, you want to feel them in your body, but you don't want to go into the mental story. So this is where you want to bring the self-compassion and the self-love when things are not going your way, when you're being rejected, when you're facing something hard, like taking care of yourself in this moment, soothing yourself, your nervous system, taking care of yourself. This is where your, I would say, self-love muscle is going to grow so much when you go out of your comfort zone, when you take risks and you take care of yourself while doing so. This is going to be so impactful. And another thing is that you're going to be learning on the way on this dating journey. when meeting more people is getting a deeper sense of all your limiting belief, of your what triggers you, of your patterns in terms of people. So it's going to give you not only the opportunity to see this into action, because you're going to see, if you're conscious, if you're paying attention to your thoughts, to what's coming up in your mind, you're going to see more and more your stories coming up. So it's a great opportunity for you to see this and then to change it. So if you have a story of telling yourself, I'm thinking, for example, heterosexual women thinking, oh, all men are like this. When you meet more people, you give yourself the chance to challenge those beliefs. Because, yes, you may be going to see men who are, for example, emotionally not mature, but for sure you're going to meet some who are mature. So it's going to challenge your belief, right?
Mhm.
And if you tend to attract people who are, not calling you back, at some point you're going to meet nice people who are going to call you back. So to challenge your stories and your belief that you have about the people you're dating, about yourself, it's a great thing to meet a lot of people. And when you have a tendency to be, we talked about anxious attachments, so to attach very quickly to the first person, to obsess about that person, to make a lot of, to, yeah, basically to attach very fast. When you're dating more people, you are not in that frantic attachment. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket, one person. So it's like, okay, maybe he or she is not calling me back, but I have these other people scheduled, on my dates, on my calendar. So there's less pressure. So it's also an opportunity to practice more what we call secure attachments, and to feel that yes, there are good available partners that are out there, and to practice the abundance belief, like the more people you're going to meet, the more people you're going to think are out there, so your person is necessarily out there and not so far.
Exactly. And also, maybe just to add to this, is that you will be also learning how to deal with those overthinking patterns once you detect it, right? So, and also you will be learning how to not overwhelm yourself, how to so basically, I think the way that I think about it is like a great way to self-regulate in that
Mm,
process and yourself, and then you start learning that if they say this, this is how I get triggered, and therefore this is how I start showing up, which is not really how I want to be doing it, and therefore this is how I want to do it differently next time. And then you go into the next time more with being aware of um, and being more intentional about it. So, one of the examples that comes up to my mind often is that I used to have this tendency of wanting to impress so much, of telling like all of my great stories of my life, and I don't know, like also maybe describing it or showing it in a bit of a heroic way, or in a way that is like a surviving or whatever the story is. And then at some point I realized I don't really want to be doing that, also because I don't want to be in this situation, hearing someone else praising and approving the whole time, and then and being with someone who has this then impression of, okay, if I'm going to be with this person, I will always need to be validating in some way, right? And that's not really how I want to be leading my relationship, where I'm needing someone else's validation the whole time, because it's exhausting. It's not leading to something good in the end, I realized. So eventually I have decided that this is not how I want to show up in the dating scene, and that's also not really me myself in the end of the day. So if I'm really trying to impress it, there must be something that I'm not believing it, and I just rather work on that. So that's why I think it's a great way to get to know yourself from so many different places, of like also thinking, what is it actually my opinion about myself in dating, right? So, like in terms of patterns you're talking about, is that, for instance, in the beginning, my opinion was that I'm not good at it. I'm like messy, or I can't really show up as me, or whatever the things that I would be telling myself. But then over time realizing, no, I actually can do it well, and I have done it well as well. I have found the person I wanted. So it's not really that I need to be undermining myself, or I need to be telling myself how I may not be good at it, and then like so creating this self prophecy of making it come true, right? So therefore, I love how we could be looking at the patterns and then seeing that what is it that's coming up, and how we want to work around those patterns as well. So then let's say that we have showed you the way of why dating actively it has lots of benefits, and you have decided that you want to give it a try, and you feel like, yes, this is what I want to do. But then there is this resistance comes up of like, like, there's something like break, some kind of a break that stops us at times. Maybe we speak a little bit about that as to why do we resist falling. Like, if we think about so many people who intellectually know, like many of us maybe even want to do that, and they have even done it, but then after a few tries we're like, right, I don't really want to be doing it. So maybe we speak about that resistance.
Yeah, well, hmm, for me, the resistance is often an indication that, I mean, first the resistance makes sense. So I think it's important to remember it makes sense. It makes sense because of both um, deep fears around dating and around
Yeah.
love. So I think we've talked about this already, but it's good to always remember this, that we want things to be very natural and easy, but we are talking about something terrifying for many people, either being loved or not being loved, like those two extreme, like the fear of abandonment and the fear of commitment, the fear of being close and the fear of being like rejected. Like they're very strong fears that we have, most of us, experienced at some points growing up when we perceived some lack of love or safety around love. And so it is there. We need to remember that it is there in our subconscious, behind our action, behind our mind telling us, oh, I don't really like dating apps. Like, it's not that you don't like dating apps, is there something way stronger in the background, in the shadow, as we say, that is making you create those stories, making you create those resistance, or making your brain rather creating those resistance. So notice when you have resistance, like notice when you have what we call limiting belief, like some judgments, about, oh, this is, I don't want to be dating this way, or dating apps are not good, or, like notice all the things that are not making you date and meet your person. Notice this, not from a judgmental place, but then like be curious, like, oh, is it true? Is it necessarily true that dating apps are not organic and not spontaneous and not all this? And like this is the same for all the resistance that you're going to have towards dating, towards a certain group of people that you're dating. Yeah, you want to be questioning this, and then you want to try to investigate what might be the deeper motive keeping you away from what you say you want. Because I think we've talked about this, but when there is a gap between, oh, I want this, but then you're not taking the actions to actually create it, then it is a sign that something is off, that a part of you is not wanting it. So, which is this part of you? Like, you want to know what is this part of you that doesn't want, that probably is afraid.
Yeah, amazing. And I was also thinking that basically, whenever we're resisting, we are afraid of feeling something, right?
Mm.
And that's always what stops us from going forward. Like you were saying, it could be many of the past reasons why we do that, or recent experiences that made us be cautious about it. So, whatever it is, that I think in that moment, being very self compassionate, like Pauline was saying, loving yourself in that moment, and being with those emotions and understanding yourself. So it's important, I think, that you don't force yourself and say, like, well, you just need to get over yourself and then do something, or like whatever the thing that yeah, however the way you talk to yourself, uh, this may come up, and instead of forcing yourself, being very gentle with yourself, and then like staying with that emotion to understand what do you want to do with it, right? Because keep following that fear and not going for what you're wanting will probably keep you in that space and not moving forward. And we somehow understand that maybe intellectually, but like doing the actual work probably is not easy. So that's why giving yourself time to reflect and feel it, but at the same time saying, yes, you have these fears. Yes, you have these, um, you're avoiding feeling something that you think may come up. But then what's the alternative, right? The alternative is keep waiting. Alternative is not doing anything about it. Alternative is just wishing there was someone, but us not really taking action or anything towards that making that happen, right? So that's why, like, being honest with yourself, also giving yourself different ways of looking at this, like I always, whenever I feel stuck or when I feel afraid, I ask myself, well, what's the alternative, right? So I can't stay, of course, in the afraid. I can stay in the oh, I don't want to be doing it, or I don't want to go this the uncomfortable road. But then staying where I am is also equally uncomfortable.
Mm.
Or worse, maybe staying where I am, I already know how it's going to feel. It's not going to feel good, right? Especially if I'm looking for someone. And then because of that fear, the roadblock, let's say, I'm not going over the fence, then I'm just staying where I am and I already know how that feels. So
Mm.
then let's go explore the territory over the fence to look at what else we can do and what else we can do when we face the fear, right?
Mm.
Because I have most of the time in my life experienced facing fear of growth, facing fear while getting to our goals is always rewarding, whichever way, rather than staying and hiding or not really going forward to what we want. So that's why I would love for you to get curious about your resistance, but at the same time, giving yourself a very honest conversation to see, okay, these are the roads available, and which one do you want to choose, right? And then you decide which way you want to go. Okay, anything else, Pauline, we wanted to mention?
No, I think that's it. It's really like the way you're, saying things about the uncomfort, the discomforts.
Yeah.
That's we are usually familiar with a certain level of discomforts, and because it's
Yes.
familiar, we tend to stay there even if it's not helpful. And we have like, oh, I have this big dream, I have big desire, but that there's all this
Yeah.
wave of fear that is blocking me, that creates like a wall. And so the idea is not to force yourself, but to, as you say, be curious. And there are different ways to go about that, but
Yes, exactly.
being curious absolutely would be a first stage.
Exactly. And in the end of the day, you will always get to learn something by facing your fear, by learning about your fear, by going to the date with the fear. So whatever the things that you're going to do, you will learn so much about yourself rather than when you just keep being in the place where you are and keep theorizing as to what could happen and how it could happen and all of this. That's all going to be only hypothesis. So it's rather important, I would say, go and test that and then see what comes out of it, right? So that's what we're really saying. Okay, with that, thank you so much for listening to us, watching us, and please do share your feedback, your views on this, how you view it, how you treat it, or how you are doing it now, what has worked, what hasn't worked. We'd love to hear from you. And also, of course, if you want coaching on this, you let us know as well. And until then, we say have a great week. See you next Tuesday.
Bye, Asel. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Ending